when we talk about the struggle that comes with any deep, meaningful work, whether you're an artist, a researcher, an entrepreneur, we usually focus on the external battles.
Right. The stuff you can see.
Exactly. Rejection, the fight for funding, deadlines, all of that. The things you fight out in the open.
And those are definitely real. They're demanding. But if you talk to anyone who's really sustained a creative practice over a long time, they'll almost always tell you the same thing.
What's that?
That the most persistent, the most enduring conflict, it's internal.
The one nobody else sees.
It's quiet, it's repetitive, and yeah, completely invisible to everyone else.
And that's the inner terrain we're getting into today.
Yeah.
This deep dive is all about that negotiation between the need to create and the built-in resistance to actually doing it.
But our mission here isn't to find some kind of productivity hack. We're not trying to find a way to conquer this internal enemy.
Okay, so what is the goal?
It's to recognize this resistance for what it often is, an intelligent, very adaptive force that speaks in your own voice. And a lot of the time, its presence is probably the strongest proof that the work actually matters to you.
So we need to flip the script a bit. It's not a personal flaw.
Not at all.
It's more like a highly sophisticated, built-in security system.
Precisely. A system that's really just designed to protect you from vulnerability, from effort, and from potential pain.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because identifying this resistance is, well, it's incredibly difficult. If it just showed up as this big, scary monster, we could fight it.
But it doesn't. It's a chameleon.
It adapts. It changes shape constantly.
It doesn't arrive waving a red flag that says, I am fear. It borrows your own intelligence. It uses your language. One day, it's crippling doubt.
And the next is just sheer exhaustion.
Or a brilliant, totally airtight reason for why you should do absolutely anything else but that main task.
That's what makes it so insidious, right? It doesn't feel hostile. It feels reasonable.
It feels completely reasonable, especially when it wraps itself up in words like care or realism or, responsibility.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Think about those internal voices. The one that says, I can't start writing this chapter yet because I haven't organized my entire file system.
Right. Or you're not ready. You need to do more research.
Exactly. You need 2 more books before your argument is even valid. Those thoughts don't announce themselves as self-sabotage. They feel like prudence. They feel necessary.
But how do you tell the difference? I mean, if it's cloaked in something as benign as responsibility, how can you know if it's self-protection or just avoidance?
Well, that's the paradox of the whole thing. It uses your own intelligence against you by just redirecting your energy. So what happens is you end up walking this wide, meticulous circle around the thing you're meant to be doing. And you feel productive the whole time.
Like cleaning the paintbrushes instead of painting.
Exactly. Both are work. But only one of them introduces the vulnerability that's required to move forward. The preparation becomes the new task, an endless delay.
Which I guess brings us right to the mechanics of that avoidance, specifically this myth of inspiration. We're always told to, wait for the muse, wait until you feel ready. But the sources are pretty clear on this. Waiting to feel ready is almost never productive.
It's just a delay tactic. Readiness is almost always the result of action, not the thing that comes before it.
You can't wait for clarity?
You have to earn it through movement. The work, whether it's a scene or a piece of code, it only starts to reveal its true shape after you physically start. You have to start the engine to see which way the car wants to turn.
So if readiness is a myth, then how do we tell the difference between genuine discernment, really thinking about a project, and just postponement?
I think artists who last a long time, they learn to recognize that line. Genuine discernment is active. It serves the work. It might be a pause to solve a real technical problem. Protective delay, on the other hand, is passive. It serves your comfort. It's when hesitation stops being thoughtful reflection and starts being about choosing the safety of not starting.
So it's like a constant, quiet, internal audit. You have to keep asking, is this pause making the work better, or is it just making me feel safer?
That's the key question. And that feeling of safety, it often relates to what we call the fear of exposure over the fear of failure.
That's a huge distinction.
It is. When you make work real, you have to make choices. You commit to a specific color, a specific argument, and those choices, while they introduce accountability, they can be judged.
But if you don't choose, if you never commit, the idea can stay perfect inside your head. It has infinite potential.
And that's the emotional comfort. Avoidance preserves that possibility. As long as the work is just a concept, all the potential success is still there, and all accountability is suspended.
So it's not actually a fear of the project failing.
Not necessarily.
It's a fear of exposing an incomplete self or an imperfect effort to the world. And that hits differently. It ties the work directly to your own self-worth.
And the resistance, that self-sabotage, is just your intelligent internal system trying to save you from that perceived humiliation. It's trying to keep you safe in that conceptual space where everything is still perfect.
So once you realize this fight is, well, perpetual and intelligent, you have to shift your focus away from motivation, which comes and goes.
Right.
If inspiration isn't reliable, what's the alternative?
Discipline. And we often misunderstand that word. We think of it as rigidity, but here it's much better to frame it as reliability.
It's just showing up.
It's the replacement for inspiration. It's what gets you through that quiet fight with exhaustion and depletion over time, especially when there's no external reward in sight. It turns the work from a spontaneous event into a sustained practice.
And this internal practice doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens inside a much bigger systemic context.
It does. And this is where the structural realities of a professional creative practice become so important. I'm thinking of insights from that documentary podcast, The Artist.
Oh, I remember that. It really showed how all those external structural pressures just amplify the internal struggle.
Absolutely. When you look at the bigger picture, you see the modern creative professional is navigating this incredibly precarious environment. I mean, the documentary showed these real-time pressures.
The constant grant applications.
Constant subsidy applications, navigating policy shifts, facing rejection as just a normal structural part of the job. The sheer amount of prep for exhibitions.
It's like you have to be an expert bureaucrat just to earn the right to make the art.
You do. You're constantly having to translate this raw, messy artistic vision into what they call institutional language.
So clear metrics, predictable outcomes.
Exactly. Aligning with policy goals just to get the funding to have the time to work. That cognitive friction, that constant translation is incredibly draining.
And that drain feeds directly back into the internal resistance. If the whole system is demanding constant recalibration and offers zero certainty, that internal system that wants safety, it just goes into overdrive.
It absolutely does. It reinforces why persistence is so crucial. The psychological energy it takes means you have to be ruthless about telling the difference between true rest and just strategic retreat.
That's a powerful distinction. How do we draw that line between genuine rest, which you need, and a retreat that's just avoidance dressed up as self-care?
Well, genuine rest serves the continuity of the practice. It's about recharging the engine so it can run again. You're taking a break for the work.
Right.
Strategic retreat, on the other hand, is a decision to shut the engine down to avoid the difficult road ahead. It's an intellectual choice to stop because the next step feels too risky or too hard.
So the moment the pause stops serving the work and starts serving your emotional need to avoid risk, you've crossed over.
You've crossed into retreat, and that awareness brings us back to our central insight here. That internal resistance is not proof that the work is wrong.
In fact, the intensity of the resistance is often a pretty accurate signal of how important the work is.
Absolutely. The sources argue that resistance often gets more intense around the work that truly matters to you. Why? Because the stakes are higher. The potential transformation is greater. The fear, the doubt, they're proportionate to the significance of the task.
So the goal isn't to eliminate it because you can't. It's to change the terms of engagement with it. How do people learn to tolerate that kind of high-stakes exposure?
They do it repeatedly, not bravely, just repeatedly. They learn to show up imperfectly by letting the work be seen bit by bit before it feels finished.
Because that builds a tolerance.
It builds a tolerance and it reinforces that clarity, just like readiness, only arrives after you commit, not before.
And through that repetition, the fight, it changes. It doesn't disappear, but it becomes predictable.
Exactly. It's no longer a paralyzing ambush. It becomes predictable noise, like the hum of an air conditioner in the room.
You can work through it.
You can work through it, or even better, just bypass it. And that predictability leads to the final essential step in all this.
Which is?
Shifting the fundamental question you ask yourself.
So you stop asking if your doubts are valid, if you really need more research.
You step out of the negotiation entirely. You stop asking if the resistance is justified.
What do you ask instead?
You just ask, does the work still need to be made? You disregard the noise. And if the answer is yes, if that necessity is still there, you proceed. Regardless of how you feel, the deliberation is over.
So it's a move from negotiation to decision. It treats the resistance not as a veto, but almost as a confirmation that you're on the right track.
It's a steady, analytical approach. This internal fight is so rarely about a big dramatic victory. It's just about consistent awareness and reliability. That intelligent caution will always be there because you're doing things that matter, but you learn to navigate it.
So we've laid out that this internal fight is perpetual, it's intelligent, and it's often proof that the work is important. We've talked about distinguishing delay from discernment and why discipline, as reliability, has to replace the unreliable idea of inspiration.
Especially when those external structural pressures are so high.
Right. And awareness of this internal landscape really is your most powerful tool.
And maybe the final thought for you to carry forward is this. The decision to proceed isn't about force. It's not a moment of motivational crescendo. It's just a simple, repeated act of decision-making.
You move forward without trying to eliminate the fear.
You move forward, not without fear or doubt, but without negotiating with it. The essential fight is never won, because it's always adapting. But through awareness and a commitment to necessity, it is consistently bypassed. That choice is always yours to make.